Well, my friends, I want to be 100% transparent with you right off the bat. This video is not a dedicated review, and I don't want to set any false expectations that this is some kind of definitive, scientific deep dive into cellular carriers in 2025. Instead, I wanted to share a funny, happy little accident that I stumbled upon. About 2 years ago, I finally caved and picked up a Google Fi number for the first time ever. At the time, I wasn't really looking to switch carriers or get overly invested in the service. I honestly just needed a generic throwaway secondary line to help me manage the mountain of review units that I've gotten over the past few months. I just needed something cheap, something functional, and something I really didn't have to think about in order to keep my testing devices online. But here's the thing, after 2 years of using this service almost daily alongside my main device, what started as a quick utility for my job has actually impressed me more than my main carrier has in decades. In fact, if I wasn't already so settled in and integrated into my own personal family plan, I would probably switch over to Google Fi 100% of the time. It turns out this service is actually one of the most underrated, best kept secrets in the Android world, and since we're heading into the holidays and a lot of you guys might be looking at new Pixels or new phone plans, I figured this would be the perfect time to tell you guys why my experience with Google Fi has been so great. We'll start first with the biggest surprise by far, reliability. Now, I obviously can't speak for all of America or overseas for that matter, and I know coverage is highly dependent on where you live, but my personal experience compared to AT&T, one of the largest legacy carriers in the US and one that I've been using my entire life, has been genuinely eye-opening. I travel a decent amount, I'm constantly on the move exploring my local surroundings in upstate New York, and I go to a ton of different spots for filming, and more frequently than not, I find myself having full service on my Google Fi unit while my main AT&T line is struggling to find a signal. If I'm going somewhere where I know for a fact I'm gonna have dead zones with AT&T, I always make sure to bring my Google Fi phone as a safety net. And 9 times out of 10, I have an actual usable signal on Google Fi when AT&T is completely dead or losing bars. That aspect alone honestly blows my mind because AT&T has been in the game for over 40 years building out this massive infrastructure. Yet this newer virtual carrier from Google is the one that actually keeps me connected when I need it the most, and it's reached a point where my backup line is often way more reliable than my primary one. Then there is this cost aspect. Back in the day, having a truly unlimited data plan felt like it cost hundreds of dollars per month. Right now on Fi, I'm paying somewhere between $40 a month after taxes for unlimited data. Now, to be fair, there is a little caveat here as it does throttle when you hit a certain cap, which is around 30 gigabytes, I believe, for the plan that I'm using in particular. But the thing is, last time I checked, AT&T and other major carriers also throttle you around 20 to 30 gigabytes anyway. So unless you're someone who's chronically online 24/7, who's doom scrolling TikTok on 5G, or trying to download massive Call of Duty mobile updates over cellular, that 30 gigabyte pack is a pill that I can very easily swallow. If you use data saver mode on YouTube or just wait for Wi-Fi for big downloads, to me, the value proposition is really hard to beat. Or if you want to use more, there are higher tier Google Fi plans. $50 a month for 50 gigabytes before throttling, $60 gets you 100 gigabytes before throttling, plus some other perks like Google One Cloud Storage, 6 months of YouTube Premium, which is actually a crazy good deal if you're well ingrained in the Google ecosystem. But I have to admit, I have made a huge mistake, as there's one particular feature on Google Fi that I didn't even realize existed until I started doing extra research for this video, and it kills me that I went almost 2 years without using it. Pixel Watch and Galaxy Watch connectivity is completely free. I think a lot of people miss this, or at least in my case, I never heard anybody talking about it. But on my main carrier, AT&T, adding a smartwatch to your plan typically costs you around $10 a month plus taxes and fees. That's over $120 a year if you just want to have your watch to get texts when you leave your phone behind. Because of that cost, I never ever considered adding a watch to my secondary Fi line because I assumed there was a big fee attached. But finding out that there's literally no downside, zero extra cost to having your watch connected on the go is an amazing benefit. It adds so much value to my Android ecosystem, and it makes using a Pixel Watch or a Galaxy Watch in the way it was intended to be a complete no-brainer. Another area where Google Fi absolutely destroys legacy competition is with the user experience, specifically with the app and switching phones process. If you watch my Pixel 10 review, you heard me complain about how Google is going eSIM only. I still hate that industry trend, and I still prefer a physical SIM SIM tray, but if we have to live in a world where eSIM is the only way you can get your phone connected, Google Fi is the only one doing it right in my opinion. As a reviewer, I'm constantly switching phones, going from nothing phone to Pixel 10 to a Samsung device to a OnePlus phone, and then back to a nothing phone 3, and then maybe to a foldable, and the list goes on and on and on. On Google Fi, however, that swapping process is virtually seamless as I just open the app, sign in with my Google account, and then the service just moves over. That's it. I've literally had no issues with the dozens of devices that I've switched over so far. Compare that to my experience with AT&T. When I tried to switch from the device I was currently using to the Pixel 10 when that first came out, that process completely failed, and it was so bad in fact that I had to physically drive to a store, wait in line, and troubleshoot with a real person, which is such an outdated way of dealing with these phone issues in 2025. With Google Fi, I even had an instance where I needed to change my phone number entirely because I wanted to start using the line way more seriously. It took me maybe 3 minutes to go through the app. I started a quick chatting session. I told the person I wanted to change my number. 3 minutes later, everything was taken care of. I didn't have to really talk to anyone on the phone. I didn't have to drive to a store. It just worked very simply. And something else I like is Google doesn't treat this service the way that typical carriers do, where they put up the towers, you get calls, text, and data, and they call it a day. Google is constantly adding new quality of life features that keep the service feeling fresh, just like they do with Pixel phones. In the past 2 years, they added RCS support for the web portal, which is fantastic if you work from a computer all day. They have a premium Wi-Fi auto connect feature that gets you access to millions of secure open networks automatically to help save on your data, and they're rolling out AI-enhanced HD calling to filter background noise, plus a redesigned Google Fi app for easier navigation, and so much more. At the end of the day, using Google Fi really triggers a specific type of nostalgia for me in a really weird way. It feels like that old school Google type vibe. If you don't know, back in the early days, it wasn't super unusual for Google to release a product like Chromecast, Google Cardboard, Google Photos, where it was super affordable, incredibly easy to use, and everyone loved it simply because it was genuinely helpful. Somewhere along the line, consumer tech got really complicated and carriers started adding all this junk that made them feel like a pain to use, but Google Fi still feels like it has that old school DNA when it simply solves a problem without creating a new one, and in the modern carrier landscape where everything feels like a hassle, that simple approach is a massive breath of fresh air. And that, my friends, is my complete quick story on Google Fi. Ultimately, what was supposed to be a burner line for my reviews has convinced me that Google Fi is probably one of the best kept secrets in the Android world. It's cheap, it's reliable, and it respects your time in a way that legacy carriers just don't do these days. But I am truly curious to hear about your experience. Who is your current carrier? If you've ever thought about making the switch to Google Fi, or if you already use Google Fi, what do you think of it so far? Am I the only one that's having such a good time with this carrier? Please let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below, as I'm super curious to hear what the Android community is thinking. Until next time, this has been Jordan Floyd from 9to5 Google. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.